Hello, everyone. My name is the Jack of Hearts, and I'm from the Generation Gaming Podcast. Now, over the past year, I've delved deep into the competitive Pokemon scene. I'm really getting addicted into creating my own teams, developing my own strategies, and basically trying to understand what makes a team tick, so to speak. So my overall goal for what I'm trying to accomplish is trying to introduce new players into the competitive scene without overly confusing them. Well, let's see. Where to begin first? First off, if you're trying to create a Pokemon team, you must take into account a couple of things. The Pokemon nature, their effort values, their individual values, the types that they are, and also what you want to accomplish with your team strategy. So first off, we'll go with Pokemon natures. As of Generation 3, which was like about 10 years ago, Pokemon natures dictate whether or not which particular type of stat has an increase in one stat and a decrease in another stat. So take, for example, the Pokemon Infernape. Now, Infernape's base attack is 104. Its special attack is also 104. Now, back in Generation 4, it was sort of used as a mixed sweeper on Smogon, what they had back in the day, but with Infernape's current move pool, it more or less tries to support as a physical attacker, like a fast physical attacker. So what Adamant Nature does is it increases attack upon leveling up, and decreases special attack upon leveling up. Now, natures play a key because it determines how strong a Pokemon can be in a particular stat and can contribute one layer upon a Pokemon that basically you could use in order to benefit yourself in the midst of battle. So knowing a Pokemon nature is only one key to the battle. Another one is effort values. Now, what an effort value, or EV, is a particular set of numbers that a particular Pokemon earns through leveling up. So say if they attack, let's just say for Infernape's case, a Zigzagoon. In Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, Zigzagoon is worth 1 attack EV. So if you go forth into the Horde battle stuff, go on to the early routes where all those hordes of Zigzagoon are, and you basically train on nothing but Zigzagoon, you could literally increase your Pokemon's attack strength to a certain extent where you can max it out. Now, there are 508 effort values for each Pokemon, meaning you have to go forth and distribute them in a good manner. So in the case of Infernape, the standard type of build that I generally see more often than not is 252 EVs into attack, 252 into speed, and I would say possibly 4 into special defense or HP. It really doesn't matter what the leftover 4 is. But basically, this is the type of set where Infernape could easily outspeed certain base-type Pokemon and hit them very hard with moves like, say, like Close Combat. Let's see. I'm just trying to type it out as I go here. Flare Blitz. You can also have certain other moves, too. Like, you could have potentially a Bulk Up, but I can say a little bit of, like, support moves, like, in another time. But what I wanted to get into next, let's see. I've already went over effort values. Oh yes, individual values, or IVs. What these dictate is how much from a range of 0 to 31, 0 being the least, 31 being perfect, how strong a particular stat is for a Pokemon. Now, in the case of Infernape, if it has 31 IVs, that's the best that it could possibly have for its attack stat. But if it had 0 IVs, it would be colossally bad in terms of using competitively, because it would just do less damage upon contact. So, for example, if you have a level 100 Infernape with about 0 IVs in attack, even with a 252 EV investment, you're looking at a Pokemon that could only do like 303 damage. Now, how I know this is because I'm just using Pokemon Showdown as a basics here. As a crutch. As a sword. But as opposed to, say, if you manage to breed for an Infernape that has 31, like a perfect attack stat, all 31 IVs into its stat, you have 337. Which that's a major difference there. That's like about 30-something attack EVs that you could have potentially, use in comparison to just the 303 with no attack IVs intact, So, obviously, the IVs, the EVs, they play a particular factor. So, what next thing I should go into are particular types. There are a lot of Pokemon types in the game, ranging from your fire, water, electricity, ground, rock, electric, fairy, dragon, dark, steel, psychic, bug. There's just a whole slew of them. Now, what you gotta make sure is when you're building a team, you have to make sure that your team is not, I should say, weak to one or two particular types. Now, even for experienced battlers, that could be really hard, because even if you try to battle test certain teams, you still will be vulnerable to one or two particular Pokemon. One or two particular types, even. Like, say, I'm going to go ahead and just bring up another Pokemon right here. Talonflame. If you're running a team that's really vulnerable to Talonflame, odds are you're going to have a lot of trouble going through the competitive scene, because there are a lot of users online that love to use Talonflame. Why? Because of the Pokemon's ability. Which abilities I'll also get into a little bit later. But for right now, the ability that Talonflame has is called Gale Wings. Now what Gale Wings does is it gives priority to a flying type move. Let's say, for example, Brave Bird. Now, Brave Bird is a very powerful flying type move. As a matter of fact, it gets about a power of 120 with 100% accuracy with 33% recoil. Now, I don't care what type of Pokemon you're packing, unless you're specifically equipped to take out Talonflame, like, say, I'm not too sure, like a big old stall type of Pokemon. Odds are, you are going to have a lot of trouble dealing with this guy, because first turn, he's going to hit that Brave Bird, and you're not going to be prepared for it. So that's just one example of why equipping your team and try to develop the type of strategy for it is very important, especially when it comes to typing, like type matchups. Because quite frankly, there are a lot of different types that are used consistently. The fire type, the water type, there's even a lot of electric type Pokemon that are used a lot. Say like your Mega Manectrix and like even Galvantula because of its sticky web move. But that's enough about types. So what I really want to get into right now is sort of the strategy type of aspect of try to create a team. Now, for some people, for some competitive players, they like to construct their teams using maybe one or two Pokemon that they like and try to develop a strategy around them. Other players, other competitive players, look at the metagame, say from Pokemon Global Link, and try to develop sort of a counter to all of those various Pokemon that are used most. Like, for example, I'm pulling up my webpage right here for the Global Link, the Pokemon Global Link. And what it's saying right now as of December 30th here, like around 10 p.m., It states for the top 12 Pokemon, ranging from 1 to 12, Kangaskhan, Landorus, Talonflame, Sylveon, Aegislash, Bisharp, Rotom, Salamence, Amoonguss, Charizard, Thundurus, Garchomp. Now, this is a top 12 list of Pokemon that is more or less used commonly in doubles battles. I believe it's the same for singles battles. Let me check. And let me check the region here for the United States. Well, actually, for the United States, for single, it looks like we have a little bit of a different type of list. It seems like Garchomp is number 1 for this one. So you have Garchomp, Aegislash, Talonflame, Rotom, Salamence, Gengar, Porygon 2, Blaziken, Kangaskhan, Cresselia, Azumarill, and Greninja. Now, if you know the type of Pokemon that people use most often, you will have to try to deduce what types of Pokemon work best against these top 12. What another good thing about Pokemon Global Link does is if you click on the top 12 Pokemon, you can actually go forth and see which moves that they more commonly will use when they're victorious. So, for example, I'm clicking on to Garchomp right now, and the number 1 move that he uses is Earthquake, 99.4%. So odds are, if you face off against a Garchomp on BattleSpot, more than likely he's going to have an Earthquake or an Outrage, which is his number 2. After that, it sort of gets kind of dicey because there's a lot of mixed variety here, from Rock Tomb to Stealth Rock, Swords Dance, Stone Edge. Heck, there's even Poison Jab to try to do some fairy support. To try to counteract against the fairy type. So yeah, going on to Pokemon Global Link and stuff is a very good asset too, in order to try to create your team around stuff. Like around a basic strategy. Now let's just go into our next phase here of developing your team. Is you want to try to develop what Pokemon does what. Which Pokemon are going to be your sweepers? Which ones are going to be your tanks? Which ones are going to be your support? Basically, by going through the step by step, a sweeper is a Pokemon that outspeeds your opponent's Pokemon and hits hard. Normally, probably due to a setup by your support Pokemon, or is getting switched in to hit fast, maybe switch back out because it's holding some form of a choice item. But basically, its plan of attack is to hit your opponent hard when they least expect it. Now, for your tank is a Pokemon that supposedly is trying to support, probably going to get bulked up by the support of your supporting Pokemon, but is mostly there to try to set up in order to try to increase the battle more so into your favor. Like, for example, Ferrothorn. Ferrothorn is an excellent bulky Pokemon that can really turn the tide of battle. If it uses a move like Leech Seed on your opponent, with Ferrothorn's high defense, it will be incredibly hard to take it out unless you're facing off against a Fire-type Pokemon, because Ferrothorn is 4 times weak to fire. But I digress. We'll get into more of that stuff a little bit later. But next, what I wanted to say is a little bit of support Pokemon. Now, support Pokemon are there for one reason and one reason only: to increase the chances of your win rate. What I basically mean by that is it's supposed to protect not only your tanks, not only your sweepers, but sometimes it can even try to protect itself as well. Like, for example, the Pokemon that make the best use of support are Pokemon with a Pokemon ability... I know, this is an oxymoron. The Pokemon with the ability Prankster. Now, Prankster is a Pokemon ability that allows certain Pokemon to use status moves first in a battle. So, for example, you have a Klefki. Klefki doesn't have any attacking moves. It has all status moves. do to try to boost its prankster ability. So first turn you could set up moves like Reflect or Light Screen. You could possibly use a Taunt, which I'm not too sure if Klefki has Taunt, but bear with me here. Or you could use, say, a particular type of support Klefki where it has Swagger and Foul Play. You Swagger your opponent where it increases their attack but confuses them. Next turn, use Foul Play, knock out that Pokemon. Or for a supporting type of Pokemon, you could use it as a way to provide adequate defense against priority moves. So for example, if you have a Meowstic that has the Quick Card ability, you could protect against Pokemon that use, say, maybe Bullet Punch or Mach Punch or certain priority moves like that. So, in order to get a really good team on your hands, you have to balance your sweepers, your tanks, and your supporting Pokemon in order to make them jive correctly. Now, one of the hardest things that I have been learning as I'm going through this experience is it's not all that easy sometimes in order to create that right balance. So, for me, I have been learning a lot by going through and just going on Battle Spot, taking the team like I have right there, from what I've made pretty much over the past month or so, and just throwing myself out there. As of currently on Battle Spot, I don't have a very good win-loss record. Why? Because my team is really untested. But the reason why it's so untested is because I wanted to try different things out. See if the different types of Pokemon are going to be present for teams, or if they're going to be the same 12 like they were for X and Y. So, there you have it. We've went over Pokemon natures, effort values, individual values, Pokemon types, how they're important, and even delving into the realms of how a team can be particularly built. One last thing I want to say, though, is if you're creating a Pokemon team, more likely than not, I see people running 2 sweepers, 2 tanks, 2 supporting Pokemon. Not all the teams your face will have this type of build, but more commonly than not, this type of 2s, as I like to call it, is pivotal in order to create success against your opponent. Well, anyway, guys, I've been the Jack of Hearts, and I'll be back again with some more Pokemon knowledge. Now, until next time, everybody, GG.